like all head says, it's a little tight at first, and then it learns your head. And
Mm.
yeah. How come if I buy avocados, they all go ripe on one day?
Mm. Yeah, I
Some are
find that
probably
with
have.
bananas too. They're only
Oh, I'm
about two
doing
days.
both. I bought a bunch of bananas at Smart and Final, and
Can you
my God,
refrigerate? Can you refrigerate an avocado to save it from going too?
yes and
Yeah.
no, and yeah, you can. And I got a seal meal or whatever they call them, and yeah, you can do that. There's all kinds of tricks, but the
But
best thing is,
when I buy avocados, I usually get 2 or 3 at a time. I test them by squeezing them a little bit at the store,
mhm.
and I take ones of different firmness. So
Yeah.
I can eat one first and then let
Yeah,
the other one
that
ripen.
that's the drawback with Costco is you get a bag,
That's why I
and
don't get my produce at Costco.
yeah, I do we do
I get a
avocados
lot
because
of other things.
it's a staple. But yeah, sometimes when life gives you avocados, make guacamole or something. Um,
Well, I
but
do
yeah,
get blueberries there.
yeah, I will generally you go down to Smart and Final or some other place and squeeze them but these little guys, they're two for $1. Good Lord. I mean, you can't go wrong.
Oh, yes, you can.
Where'd you get them, Aldi?
No, Smart and Final. Do you guys have Smart and Final?
No.
Oh,
Yeah, mostly Amazon, but when my son does get stuff at Lund's or something, bananas, I tell him, they're in bunches, but you can just break off like two of the greenest ones you can find and two,
hmm
little, like you say, about three different ripenesses, so they don't
yeah.
all,
People do. Yeah, you found the broken ones, and you find some that are. Yeah,
yeah.
no, you can do that. Well, that
I
was a
got
good
the cub.
avocado.
I got the cub yesterday, and they had all of the bananas pushed off to the left, and it looked like they were going to put some new bananas in, but they weren't there yet, and they were all kind of yellow. So I ended up buying a bunch, but I put them in the fridge. And this morning I had.
Yeah, they say not to refrigerate bananas
Yeah,
ever, ever,
Bananas.
ever, ever.
yeah. I got a whole book on that on fruits and vegetables, how to take care of them all, because I can't remember all that stuff.
Yeah, refrigerators are no for bananas. Room
Yeah,
temperature.
right.
Have we hit the point yet where avocados and bananas that are imported are too expensive to eat?
Well, so far I can get a good deals on them at Fresh Time.
At where?
Fresh Time,
T T
T-H-Y-M-E.
THYME. I love the name. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so they have really good produce at good prices. A lot cheaper than what's that other famous organic uh, produce store?
Whole Foods.
Whole Foods, yeah,
Well,
it's
yeah.
Whole paycheck. Amazon store. Yeah.
right,
Yeah, I
right,
get
right.
most of my food now delivered by Amazon. I can get Whole Foods, but they charge $10 extra for delivery, and
Yeah.
Right. I don't
yeah,
shop at Whole Foods. They're too expensive.
yeah.
I do. I go there once every 4 years when I want to
There's just a
drop
few
a
things I
paycheck.
can't get anywhere else, like falafel and
Yep.
some stuff that once in
No, I
a
agree. Yeah.
6 months or something, I'll do an order from them on
Well, it
Amazon.
is 10 o'clock now.
Yeah.
Yep. Real quick, speaking of mainstream media, I'm watching in the background the horse racing at Royal Ascot, and it was on the turf, and the horse threw his rider apparently, and he's been mucking around, running back and forth, refuses to be captured, and
Hmm.
they got people jumping on him, getting thrown off, and it's entertaining.
That's pretty
All right.
exciting.
Yep.
Sounds like he's drugged.
Aren't they all? Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the people, huh? Yeah, okay, I guess we can start. Somebody keep track of any people with their hands up in the order of hand raising, because with my attention disorder, I can't do that.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Okay, thanks. And maybe 2 minutes. I'll never be able to get even a beginning of adequate coverage, but I'll try to maybe do in Anduril on part. Well, maybe we have to talk a little bit about what I've concluded about Ukraine war and Iran Israel war, and then do a section on Anduril mainly, and then maybe a break 15 minutes or so, and 2 minutes apiece to comment, and then do Palantir and then after that, maybe 15, 20 minutes to comment, and then whatever, depending how far and fast we get. But I'll try to do things that people that follow the war on mainstream media maybe haven't seen or heard of, different viewpoints. Yeah, I want to say upfront disclosure, I am very much I hope very much emotionally as well as intellectually, that Ukraine comes out of this reasonably free and intact, but I will try to give the Russian viewpoint under the topic of know your enemy, understand your enemy. And well, I can't predict much. There's so much that's hidden from us. This is when like the guy is right, proven right, where you can't predict the future unless those who do not study history and learn from it have no future. So this is a time when you can look at certain historical things and maybe get a crude guess at least what's may happen in the future. Well, start off. I was hoping my Israeli friend here has been FaceTiming with him most every day lately, since this war started, and he's in Beersheba. You've probably seen near his home, and on last few days when Iran hit the biggest hospital in southern Israel in Beersheba there, and you see it part of it in smoking ruins. Well, that's about 2 long blocks from his condo. And so, is Dean there still, or?
Dean,
I'm here. I'm mobile and around, but I'm muted.
Well, just how to say, I remember the Iran started up. Bob said the other day he FaceTimed me. Well, it was a week now, I guess. He said Netanyahu called everybody on the phone in the middle of the night in Israel and woke him up and told him, we've just attack Iran. Turn your TVs on. We'll give you about a 10-minute warning when the inevitable counterstrike comes. So, and it's been that ever since. And he said, sorry, but he's just in a bad mood of constant war and seeking shelter. He didn't really want to. I thought maybe he could, answer if you had any questions about what it's like to be actually living through it, but he doesn't really feel up to it now. He doesn't.
I understand.
His building is like an old one from the 50s. He doesn't actually have all in winds in recent decades by law have to have a bomb shelter built in. He doesn't. He just has to go out onto the concrete steps in the common area, when the sirens go off. One did when hitting him from Gaza. He's only 30 miles from Gaza, but they only got 1 minute warning from rockets incoming from there. So one happened actually when we were Skyping a few years ago or in a previous go around. And he's just sitting there and woo, he says, gotta go. And I knew the drill, so I just waited there 5 minutes. And then
when I was in Vietnam, but we always reminded ourselves that we were not having a good time and we were scared and we might die, and we would say but at some point we're going home one way or another, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, these people are going to be living here, have lived here, and they will continue to live here. There is no rotation for them. This is their lives now. I said,
Okay, we're in the phase of the presentation now where we use reactions to raise our hands to make comments or questions.
Yep. Sorry, I'm mobile and I'll shut up.
Okay.
Eric sort of called on me, so.
Yeah, I did. What can I say there? It's going on and on. And then he says, on top of it all, the damn kids have learned to do a pretty good imitation of the sirens. They think it's funny to imitate the sirens and see everybody run. He's not a religious nut or anything. Why is he there? I asked him one time, and he said he didn't say anything idealism or, Zionism or religious reason. He just said, "Oh, it's nice. It's nice to live in a building where everybody looks like my Aunt Ruthie." Recently, just the other day, I mentioned it looks like the latest statistics. There actually had net emigration, which last few years, which you can understand if you're raising kids there. You don't want them constantly under the bomb next to a country that's rapidly building atomic bombs and calling them a one-bomb country and saying that even if Iran loses 20 million wiping out the Jews, it'll be worth it. So I can understand why a lot of people that's enough. So they got to do something here. We'll be in it any time now. It could be this weekend even. We're flying massive amounts of B-2 bombers, B-52s, refueling tankers, and so on, and even some special forces troops. It's a big debate in Congress because obviously, understandably, a lot of people don't want to, another rerun of Iraq or Afghanistan for a forever war. And Iran is much more formidable than either of those. So I understand the people that are very concerned here about us getting involved. What else can I say? Oh, Iran. Can anybody get up that Dave or Stan, I sent you an image of a colored tribal map of Iran. Because I see, bottom line, talking that the main problem is it's got to be regime change. If there's not, well, then it's just another truce and then rinse, repeat. They rebuild, redig, only deeper and with more anger. So the only hope, really, for long-term peace is regime change, and most of the young people do not. From all the research, they don't like the regime at all. They've been rioting and so on for months. If you follow that, of course, the previous rulers did not do anything I know of to help them. We don't seem to be able to do less. Regime change sounds like nasty. We should never do, but it seems like a lot less bloody and costly solution than just conquering them. And trying to enforce something or democracy building or something. As to it all hinges what happens after they manage to knock out the current regime. How many of the Iranian army go to how well organized is the opposition? I can't get a handle. Yeah, the Shah's son is talking about that and saying a lot are deserting, but I just know real numbers as to how many. The attitude of most of the people in the Iranian army outside the Revolutionary Guard. And yeah, Dean or
We have two hands up.
who's first? Dean?
I am. I
Okay.
just wanted to recount one of my high school friends. Back in high school, he was he's Jewish. In fact, his father was a rabbi.
Mhm.
He was what you would probably call liberal. Anti-war and all that kind of stuff. And later on in life, he moved to Israel. He lives there, and he became radicalized. He is of the only opinion that a good Palestinian is a good dead Palestinian.
Yeah.
So,
About
things
Muslims.
happen when you're over in a war zone all the time.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Bob is that way too. He's typical, almost stereotypical politically, in Brooklyn Jewish, Democratic liberal. When I knew him in Hunter College there in late 60s or to 1970 when we graduated. But yeah, he's been voting for Netanyahu lately. As Winston Churchill says, if you don't have, if you're not, they asked him why he changed, and he said, from liberal to conservative, he said, if you're not liberal when you're young, you don't have a heart. If you're not conservative by 40, you don't have a brain. But you can't
Tom.
Winston Churchill.
Yeah.
But you can't quote him in public in Britain anymore. You can be arrested for hate speech if you quote Winston Churchill in public anymore. So they don't have freedom of speech anymore.
Tom, go ahead.
The idea that we're not involved in this war is ignorant. There is no place on this planet that is not 88 minutes from a nuclear explosion.
Yeah.
We just not absorbed this idea that this is indeed now one world, and we have to learn to get along. Let people be different, and the devil will take all of us if we don't.
Yeah.
Dean, you're next.
Mute. Now, two real quick things. Regime change. So you remember the Arab Spring? You remember what happened in Syria? How did that work out? And then the second thing is, did anyone catch? It's been replayed a million times. Cruz and Tucker Carlson, and Tucker says, "So what's the ethnic makeup of Iran?" Really, Tucker? Do you know all 300 of those tribes? Yeah.
Yeah, that was my main point I'm trying to get across by showing this map that, okay, assuming we do, best case, knock out the current regime and they fall apart or flee or something, well, what is the nature of the opposition there? And can any combination of forces cobble together some kind of a coalition that could produce anything there better than a Mad Max type of state like Libya, which Hillary Clinton and John Kerry created by breaking our agreement with Gaddafi. I'm not sticking up for Gaddafi, saying he was a great guy or anything, but I think that we should try to keep basic agreements once in a while. It's in our interest to be somewhat trustworthy. When he agreed to stop developing WMDs and stop shooting down our airliners, and after Reagan bombed his palace and killed one of his kids, and he actually did keep his word, but because he saw that they were slowly, successfully Islamizing Europe peacefully, he agreed to stop the terrorism, and it pretty much is all I know. He was keeping his word. He was keeping the terrorists in prison and so on that he caught. And then when Hillary and Kerry bombed his flushed him out of his palace by bombing him, and then tracked him, and the West German intelligence told everybody where he was. He was trying to flee to his tribal area, and then he was beaten to death by a mob while being sodomized with a stick. Well, the rest of the world notices these things, especially other dictators, and if there was any prospect of them making mutually tolerable deals with us, there it goes. When you do things like that. I mean, everybody's always complaining, oh, we should never make deals with these horrible dictators. But like somebody replied, well, we'd rather deal with Mother Teresa, but she isn't available at the moment.
Yeah, we had a deal with Iran, but that was broken by Trump in his first administration. Carol, you're next.
Well, it was a horrible deal to be at all, if anybody objected, and it was proven to be because they were repeatedly reporters said they were cheating. As they're Muslims, that's what Muslims do. Sorry, anything is justified to advance that helps advance Islam and conquering the infidels.
Carol.
Don't I recall that the current regime is pretty much the result of attempting regime change with the Shah?
Yes, Jimmy Carter betrayed our alliance with the Shah and wouldn't keep him in power. It's true. A lot of people say he was kind of brutal he was modernizing the country, but the other side, there's a lot of people say he was quite brutal to his opponents too. So that's why I'm kind of dubious that
we have been very unsuccessful at regime change.
Yeah, well, they did it very successfully in '52. Mossadegh, they had a socialist that was nationalized their oil industry, And of course, the American and British oil interests didn't like that, so we did get rid of him. But we don't seem to have that ability anymore.
Dean, you're next.
Unmute. Yeah, I'll remind you guys that my dad worked in Libya and went through all of that. And yeah, there is some truth in what Eric is saying. You know, he was trying to kind of wake up, make nice. Yeah, Iran. Geez Louise. Well, I mean, it goes back to the revolution of the Shah. But I'll remind you that nobody wore burqas when the Shah was in power. Women, they had the most highly educated female. Their PhDs outnumbered their male PhDs by like 50%. And in his own way, he was brutally progressive. But yeah, I mean, the Shah was brutal, but I mean, but I think he was in his own way, a patriot, as in he felt, you know, like Trump feels he is doing the right thing, you know, but I won't compare. Well, maybe I could, but yeah. And then the takeover and yada yada, and then the screw up with the helicopters and on and on and on it goes. Yeah, but I can't blame all that on Jimmy Carter. Sorry.
Yeah, it's very complicated, but he didn't back him at all. There was a lot of opposition to him at the time too, and you know, students rioting. So it gets more, the more deeper you dig, the more complex and confusing it gets.
And I'll just follow up real quick. I am convinced that had those hostages been released, they were released in time to make Ronald Reagan our president, and that is almost an undeniable. You can almost draw that line.
It sure looked like a deal had been struck.
Yep.
Yeah. I agree.
Anyway, let's get on to the current topic.
Yeah. Okay, and
Right.
then I don't know if
One side can act so it looks like there was a deal too.
yeah, I don't know what more to say. I've tried in AI and everything else. I can't find any good evidence of any kind of coalition waiting in the wings to replace the current one that would be, you know, more tolerable. It's like, well, my best friend is a history buff and a war gamer. My best friend from work, he's a systems analyst, but his whole lifelong hobby is history and especially military history. And when Saddam Hussein was in there and they were all talking about democracy building, he said, it's not like Thomas Jefferson is waiting in the wings. It's Sodom 2, Sodom 3, and so on.
Not to mention the fact that Thomas Jefferson was a slave owner.
Oh, it's horrible.
Well, everyone
Well,
back
not
then,
everybody, most everybody with money was. And every people through, they got to rename Seattle. It reminds me because, of course, Chief Seattle had slaves too, but it's still up on. I don't know. I don't think it's taken down yet from Wikipedia, but yeah, they got to rename Seattle. They can name it after his daughter or something.
Bob, go ahead. You're muted.
Oh.
Bob, you're muted, but go ahead if you can unmute. Maybe he's not there. My comment was that there have been a lot of black slave owners.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of them were women, actually. So it's an interesting history. It's not necessarily black and white, you might say.
Oh, no. Who do you think? The slave traders didn't go running through the jungles to capture them. They just went to the coast, and the local dominant tribes there would sell them the ones they had captured in battle or just hunted down and captured. And there was huge slave trade in one African kingdom that was filthy rich from it.
Well, I don't know if we're getting off topic, but we still have a couple hands up.
Yeah.
Bob, are you there? If you are, unmute. Otherwise, go ahead, Dean.
Yeah, I mean, slave trading, I've studied a lot about Africa, was alive and well in Africa for millennia. But
Still is.
Britain and the Dutch and whoever, and the French industrialized it.
Mhm.
And we made them wealthier beyond their wildest hopes. Because we industrialized their already native, and the Greeks had slavery, yada yada. But yeah, we brought it to a new level, I believe, and from what
Yeah.
I have learned.
It's the norm through history. Again, it's good to know a little history. It's the norm throughout history. The Heraclean Athens, I don't think they could have achieved what they did without slavery.
Yeah, slavery is not a good thing. I mean,
Well,
people should not be chattel. But that goes for women, people, minorities, and whatever. Stan, go ahead.
Well, you've got plantations and farmers and landowners owning slaves. And then you have industrialists with their factories and their manufacturing owning their labor in a way.
Yeah, indentured servants and whatever, a little different thing from slaves, but
no, a little bit. Yeah, they don't talk about all the large percentage of early Americans that came here as indentured servants. You know, it's true after 5 or 7 years or something, they did get freedom, but
okay, Stan. Bob, are you there? Dean, go ahead. We should finish up the discussion and continue on with a
I don't
presentation
see what
here
else to
shortly.
say about Iran. I can't see it. Well, yeah, also time is of the essence because Israel, well, the West is just caught. Unfortunately, when we finally did get into World War II, we had this great, vastly superior industrial base to Germany and Japan. And we don't have that now. Russia is, even though their economy is only 1/8 that of just Western Europe, not counting America, they're only about the size of Italy. They are outproducing all of NATO Europe combined in military production. That's why they keep winning, one reason. And Ukrainians are running out of people, out of men. And also in Israel, they're running out of interceptor rockets. They're spending these super expensive Iron Dome, and they got 3 layers of defensive rockets, but they're not unlimited supply. And I don't know what the Chinese have sent in there, whether they're more rockets for the Iranians or equipment they want to test. They haven't gotten to battle test their military since they tried a little invasion of Vietnam in the late 70s and got a bloody nose. They haven't really had any combat experience. Every country needs that to stay at. So I don't know what's, we got to get this over, or Israel's going to run out of stuff, basically.
Dean, last.
Yeah, real quick. Yeah, when you indentured servitude, there were people who were happy to come to this country that way, and in one generation they became. And remember that apprenticeships and internships, modern day indentured servitude, are alive and well. I mean, apprenticeships used to be. Yep.
Did I by any chance unmute my my microphone?
Yes, now you're unmuted.
I'm telling you, watching Zoom on my phone has become too complex for me. But in any case, all I really wanted to say is it would be better for me if I learned something. Okay. And that means this is a futurist group. Okay. So I'm interested in learning about Palantir and Anduril and how those particular companies may develop weaponry or other kind of weaponry could be developed that might make a difference in the future. I'd be interested in that. In terms of going over what kind of shoes the Shah wore during the 4th biennium of his mother's birthday, I'm not interested in that. Can we go on to the future
Yeah.
somehow?
Okay, Stan, you want to start playing the, I guess maybe start with that old 30. Oh,
Otherwise, I have no opinion.
let's see. Which is the first.
Well, I've got the AI arsenal that could stop World War III.
Yeah, why don't
Palmer,
you start with that one. Get us a little, Bob stirred up a little here. That one.
Give me your top three ingredients.
Yeah, maybe you could just go right through all the ones on Anduril and then have a talk break or something. Is that okay?
I've got them all here. They're ready. Here it comes.
Hey, why don't you start playing them, or Stan?
Yeah, this would work for me.
I want you to imagine something. In the early hours of a massive surprise invasion of Taiwan, China unleashes its full arsenal. Ballistic missiles rain down on key military installations, neutralizing air bases and command centers before Taiwan can fire a single shot. The People's Liberation Army Navy moves in with overwhelming force, deploying amphibious assault ships and aircraft carriers, while cyber attacks cripple Taiwan's infrastructure and prevent emergency response. The Chinese rocket force's long-range missiles shred through our defenses. Ships, command and control nodes, and critical assets are destroyed before they can even engage. The United States attempts to respond, but it quickly becomes clear. We don't have
we cannot outpopulate them. And so we need it's just scary, the hyperbolic rate that they've been able to do things, because they are a dictatorship essentially, and they are very good at, well, they know everything we did wrong because they know everything we know. I mean, they have so hacked us for decades, into our military and industrial complex. And they're just, I don't know whether they're smarter than we are, but they're acting smarter than we are. But they're not a democracy. Democracies are inherently dumb, and take time. And they don't have 5-year plans. They have 50-year plans. And I think they're surpassing their own expectations. And it scares me. And I would, if I were younger, I would go to Taiwan and fight for the freedom of Taiwan. I absolutely 100% would. And also Ukraine. But I'm not that young anymore.
Yeah, I guess I'm the only other hand up. I think China is watching what's happening in Ukraine, and the lesson they're probably taking from it is that we're withdrawing from the world, and they'll be able to attack Taiwan without any repercussions pretty soon.
Yeah. There'll be some perfunctory, what do you call it, sanctions or something that they can take. And well, they've been stockpiling huge amounts of raw materials and other things, food and other things, which doesn't make any economic sense unless they were expecting to be embargoed or blockaded for a while. Or okay, let's see. Okay,
H-Tom, go ahead. Unmute Tom. You're still muted, Tom.
Ooh.
Okay.
It used to be said that the United States couldn't see past the next election. And it's come to the point that the United States can't see past the next arrest.
The next what?
Arrest.
Oh,
Or murder or whatever. We have zero foresight in our political class. And that's a losing proposition. China doesn't have to attack us. We're going to fall under our own incompetence.
Yep. Dean.
Yeah, and I'll go back to deterrence. When China started building those so-called islands, which was a clear violation of everything international, that was our move, and we didn't deter them then. And they said, "Oh, these guys really are a bunch of blanks," and we got them by the blank. And yeah, we should have sent a message. And there was confrontations. There was Coast Guard bumping into Coast Guard, and we didn't have our back. We didn't have Taiwan's back. We should have
Australia's back.
Yeah, we should have picked up the phone and said, you know what? We're going to take one of those out. If you want to get your people off of it, but we're going to put it on the bottom of the ocean. You are not going to do that. We're going to nip this in the bud. You stop your dog from biting you before he bites you.
Yeah, I don't see why. I researched AI. Why haven't Taiwan and South Korea and Japan all have the IQ and the technology and the money to rapidly develop defensive nuclear weapons? I couldn't understand why they haven't. I researched AI, two AIs, and bottom line, we wouldn't let them for using various power we have over them. Yeah,
I 100% agree. I think Japan, they all wanted to step up. Remember, though, that that China is like Catalina Island to California. I mean, they're just right there on their doorstep, and they have a long, long history. But yeah, I get the feeling that for whatever political, economic, God knows what reasons, we are willing to sacrifice Taiwan and Japan. I'm not too sure about, but we sure don't have their backs, do we?
Japan's rapidly rebuilding now, but I don't see how they can really deter China without nukes, to be honest.
I don't see how they can deter them with nukes.
With nukes. And I think Japan should have had nukes decades ago as the deterrent.
Back to Anduril. Is that going to be the future of warfare?
Yeah, one of them. The other is Palantir, the other big looming one. Yeah.
The question is, how autonomous are these weapons going to be? Are they going to be just a part of the sub-part of the command and control structure, or are they going to have their own volition and decide, well, we better attack these guys on their own?
That's a hugely debated thing, is that there is a definite advantage to allow the weapons to make their own quick decisions. Whoever does that has an advantage in battle. But of course, then there's downsides like that. How do you make sure that the AI is not going to just wipe out the masses of hospitals or decide to do things that we really don't want it to do? That's a big problem. Yeah, I don't know. Can we go? Oh, thanks, Dave.
Well, there's still a couple more hands up. If we can keep on the topic, that would be good. Carol, go ahead.
Yeah. I would maintain that so far, you're not talking about the future of warfare. You are talking about the cutting edge present of warfare. And I would maintain that the future of warfare on Earth will consist of having launch capability on the moon. It's a concept that Heinlein put forth 20, 30 years ago, the high ground. And you can take out any city on Earth with without atomic weapons, with simply a launch capability, catapult launch capability on the moon, and you drop rocks on them.
Yeah,
I would suggest that that is the future of warfare.
That's, to me, that's not a deterrent because it takes a long time for those rocks to get here. The war could be over by the time they get here.
yeah, there's all kinds of schemes out there, but I don't see any of the top people I've found thinkers on defense prioritizing the moon. And there are plans, both, you know, China, I think, and America both have plans to go back there, but it doesn't seem the highest priority. We do have a space force, supposedly. But well, yeah, you want to just go on and show we could jump to the autonomous weapons. I think that's more in our near-term future and more predictable. Is you want to jump to the 60 minutes one? Oh, okay, Dave. You guys still want to talk more?
Hey, David, your hand is up.
The only thing I had to say was that if in fact this is going to be a low cost issue, if we're trying to talk about what are the cheapest ways to impact the future of war, it really depends on whether you're willing to limit it to ethical war or whether you're strictly going to go by cost. And if it's strictly a question of cost, biological warfare is so much cheaper.
Well, that may happen too, which is my biggest fear, but because the reason people don't is because it's too hard to control if they come back and kill your own people.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's why I don't think anybody's planning it imminently. Yeah, do you want to play the 60 minutes now on more on Anduril weapons, or and then you can go on to their jet fighter after that, their unmanned autonomous jet fighter.
Dean still has his hand up. He'd like to say something.
Elon Musk.
Yeah, I was going to say something on topic. Carol, I'll remind you that the future is now. We don't have 20, 30, 40, 50, 80 years to develop slingshots on the moon. You know, we have to look at the threat now, and it has never been more now.
Let me remind you that in less than 80 years, we went from Kitty Hawk to the moon landing. It's not going to take 80 years to develop capability on the moon.
Currently, I think that's illegal by international law.
It clearly is.
Not that that has much force, but we shouldn't do it.
So does the South China Sea as international waters by everybody's agreement except China.
The U.S. government. But tonight, we'll introduce you.
Say Luckey himself decides we need to take out China or whatever. What's to stop him?
Nothing. That was my question. And my other one was, if you make war risk-free for your citizens, then where is the buy-in, right? If we only have these, and that guy, yeah, I'll have a margarita. Thank you very much. He's a very interesting guy, but yeah, hack-free, great. I'll guarantee you that China and or Russia can hack those bad boys, and
So
they
I'd
will.
like to hear Eric's opinion of that.
I would too.
We can already see a bit of this going on in the Ukraine war, and then also in Israel versus Iran, where they fight for control of drones. At first, it was just you guys with a remote control, flying a cheap drone with a grenade attached, and then the other side with anti-drone jamming equipment. And now they moved on to like fiber optic cables that can go up to 10 kilometers and more now. So and most recently, the newest ones have actually built-in AI, maybe using even pattern recognition of targets and so on. So it's a constant escalation, evolution again of technologies, each trying to take control from the other, disrupt the enemy's control or actually seize control of the weapons. And I see that same thing in Israel and Iran, where they're sending drones back and forth at each other. They struggle for control of them. I don't know enough of the technology to see where it's going to end. Right now, and over Ukraine, it's like World War I, except for at least 10 kilometers on both sides of the front line, there's just swarms of drones of both countries, both spy drones and then ones with bombs and other things now. Just and it's horror for the troops. They can't even come out in the open at all. They're immediately subject to being spotted and killed by drones. And it goes on and on. It keeps escalating. I don't know enough of the technology to say where it's going to end.
So to my question, you're saying yes, it is possible that these could be hacked, at least for a period of time until anti-hack in tech or whatever programming gets installed.
Yeah, as far as I know, I don't know enough of the technology to give us any really authoritative answer.
Okay, Tom.
Oh, well, of course they can be hacked. I mean, it's no different than hacking people. Probably easier than hacking people. People have second thoughts. Machines, maybe not so much. But really, I wish him well. I worked in the defense industry. It paid well. It looked at my ideas. Most of them it said, nah. Although some of them I see have come around and are now the newest, greatest thing. Well, yeah, it was in 1980. But in 1980, they didn't want it. It's the delusion is that you are not at war. You are. You just refuse to accept it.
From the CCP's point of view, they've been at war with us since they took power, at least since they took power in 1949. We just got themselves, if we just try to integrate them in the world, they'll see the superiority of our philosophy and way of life and so on and become like us. Well, unfortunately, that didn't work.
They're going to take the toys and live their life.
Okay, Dean.
I'm triple tasking. Yeah, and it reminds me of Mad Magazine, spy versus spy versus spy versus, I forget how many they got. Yeah, so you hack and then and then so yeah, where does that go? I'm not sure. No, I obviously there is a better way to do defense than we have been doing it post World War II. And when the motor companies quit building cars and started cranking out airplanes in 90 days, for crying out loud, from drawing board with no AI, no tools, no computers, and they cranked out planes then. And we have completely lost that mentality. And Eisenhower warned us, and Eisenhower was spot on.
And it's gotten worse since then. 1956, when Eisenhower, as Dean says, he warned us against the military-industrial complex. Well, sorry to say, things have only gone downhill from there. They've devolved, and it's now basically they've shrunk. There's now only about 5 they call primes, defense contractors, and in bed with the Pentagon and various members of Congress, ever more incorrupt and inefficient, resulting in the ever skyrocketing defense bills and yet for all of that, well, basically, yeah, we get endless cost overruns and failures of systems. Well, look at the history of the F-35. Look up that on AI and see all the original budget and plans. And America still seems to be losing the race for global military dominance against China. The way it worked until recently, until these two companies, they would the generals would give a spec sheet basically and put that up for bid, and then some one of the primes would win, promising to match those specs, and then along the way they keep running into, oh, it's going to cost a little more and take longer, and on, and they keep, by that time we're committed, we got to have this new fighter to keep up with the Russians and Chinese, the F-35, so they keep, it goes on and on that way. Well, the contrast Anduril offers, and they had a hard time breaking in. They're still, I think they're succeeding. Finally, they offer actually working prototypes instead of just spec sheets, and because of some of the military, they saved so many lives in Afghanistan and Iraq and so forth with what they're doing, that they finally had to give them a chance, and they're showing this stuff now. Okay,
David.
I believe, the way I understand it, the military also defunded their group that tests prototypes. So there's some question, who's in charge and are we going to be consistent? My guess is that we can talk about this for a whole lot longer than a couple hours.
Oh, yeah.
So my suggestion is that we might want to think about splitting this into a couple of presentations and fill one of our slots for July with the second half.
Yeah, I'd like to get in some of Palantir and Palmer and Alex Karp. I think he's really a pioneer and a Uber shaker. I don't know. I could skip the one on. You want to skip the one on Palmer Luckey's autonomous fighter plane?
I'm over Palmer Luckey for now. Yeah.
Okay, let's start Stan, you back? Yeah, can we start with like the first very little tiny overview of future war of Palantir, the 32-second one that says.
Is Palantir one of Lucky's companies?
Oh, no, it's this is more of a software. I can't find Palantir. It's founded by Alex Karp and Londale, another guy. I can't quite remember his name. But let's see what this. Their software.
I've got one that says Palantir Future of Warfare Palantir.
Yeah, 33 seconds.
30 seconds or minutes?
33 seconds. Yeah, there's Future Warfare. Yeah,
is that a short?
Yeah, only 33 seconds. Just a brief overview, and then I'll get to more. And then I'll put Alex Karp's speech about what they're all about. But to oversimplify what they do, it's described as an operating system for AI, in which they go to any enterprise, military, government, or civilian, and they put all the information that the company has in their databases, and give them AI to integrate that with all that they have access to, the whole internet and whatever is coming in the future, and converts that into a form of visual screens that their management of that company can easily call upon and just see what's going on all over, and it keeps track of all the connections between everything that's going on, and they can easily visualize stuff and make decisions. There's both a military, a government section called blank it out. Yeah, the Foundry is the industrial private enterprise, and then Gotham is the government version. But yeah, can you play first the one on that 133-second one?
Well, did that just show a bunch of drones taking out some?
Yeah, didn't they say there's supposed to be a sound in there saying that in nuclear wars are like outcomes determined when by the time they start usually. I mean, skip the one on Ukraine, I guess, for now. How about, let's see, can you do Palantir defense decision making, 5 minutes, 19 seconds? Do that one next. It gives a simulation. It's of a hypothetical encounter with the Chinese, and stopping it from escalating. Oh, Stan?
Well, I'm not sure which one you meant. He's trying to figure that out too.
Oh, it says, or is it Palantir Gotham for defense decision making, 5 minutes, 19 seconds. Yeah, this is hypercritical to preventing blunders into war. If you remember the Cuban Missile Crisis, we only avoided nuclear war there because of the three decision makers on one Russian subs, one refused to sign off on using a nuclear torpedo. That's that close how we came. Hopefully Palantir can help improve the odds of avoiding unnecessary or unintended escalation.
Two comments I want to make about this. I know that Keith Ellison back in the day integrated the CIA with Oracle software to bring the defense contractors and so forth up to speed with the computer industry. And I think this is what Anduril is doing, is taking in that same lead with Keith Ellison's Oracle connection to the CIA and providing the same service with artificial intelligence to the same situation. And my comment I wanted to make prior to this last video, when I had my hand up before, is I think that even though NASA is not a defense contractor, it was taking on the same qualities and the same description as the defense contractors were taking on, and not cutting the edge with innovation. And so SpaceX came along as an example of how that could be modified. So we could use maybe SpaceX's relationship to NASA as being what Anduril's relationship is to and Palantir's relationship to the incumbent defense contractors.
Yeah.
Carol.
Yeah, some comments on semantics. One of the reasons that we won in the Cuban Missile Crisis was that Kennedy insisted on using the word quarantine as opposed to the more realistic blockade, because a blockade is an act of war. A quarantine is not. And it gave the Russians a way to back down without an enormous loss of faith. So, importance of semantics there. Importance of semantics here. I'm a little iffy about two separate high-tech, brand new war companies that are naming their gadgetry after stuff from the Lord of the Rings. Palantir, Anduril. I mean, come on, guys.
I think it's cute.
Yeah, it is.
You think it's cute. They think it's cute.
It's a
What kind
name.
of thinking is this?
The left has no sense of humor. What can I say? It's let's see, Anduril is, I believe, a sword in the Lord of the Rings, and Palantir is like a seer stone or I don't know, the wizard somebody had.
Yeah.
Different. Okay.
Anduril was Aragorn's sword,
Right.
reforged from the broken one from the last war.
Yeah. And
And,
Palantir was communications device and remote viewer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, how seriously are these guys taking war?
Well,
They're doing it like a
gallows humor, or I don't know. My friend and
they're
Bob.
doing it like a war game.
Yeah, well, you have to
But
have.
that's what business is.
War
Like
game.
a video game. They were raised on video games.
To
Yes.
stay sane, you have
Life
to.
is a video game to
To
these.
maintain some humor. That's what humor's for in evolution, is de-escalating. Otherwise, escalation. Violence, potential violence. That's what humor's
Wow.
guy humor anyway. Is a lot of that's what a lot of it's about. Is
Hey, Kennedy got away with it.
well, he got away by giving up our missiles in Turkey. So it really wasn't a win. It was kind of a compromise. And I remember that. I don't know, you guys are probably too young. I was in school in 3 miles from Orlando Air Force Base, and remember having a Beat Cuba rally, and it was very exciting. There were warplanes flying over our heads all day to Miami, and we were chanting Beat Cuba. And
I was a junior in high school.
we wanted the war. Little did I know at the time that Russia already had nuclear warheads there, and they had been given orders in case of invasion, use those. And we were definitely in range, and their missiles weren't very accurate. If they missed the Orlando Air Force Base a little bit, we would have been fried. But live and learn.
Well, but I thought it was quite clever of Kennedy to never use the word blockade.
Should have.
And to insist that it wasn't a blockade.
Well, if he hadn't betrayed the Bay of Pigs invasion earlier and left them, it's the veterans that came to our school, and he had to go okayed that, and at the last minute they were promised air and naval support. This veteran from that came to our school. He said, we didn't go there and commit suicide. And then to the last minute, he chickened out and called off air and naval support. This guy said, we saw them just standing there offshore, just leaving us to be slaughtered. So I haven't not much concern.
Okay, Dean, can we get back on topic?
Yeah, I'm going to try. So yeah, well, Bay of Pigs. So the Cuban Missile Crisis, and Carol's well taken point about semantics, because language does matter in diplomacy and in war. Which diplomacy? I want to leave you with this. I wanted to mention I like the idea of Pandora, whatever the second one was.
Palantir.
Palantir for assisting. So I have my Mini, which is assisted driving, but I want to be the driver. I want input from you, and I will decide where to turn the wheel and all that.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to belief, so you guys know about the bullet train in California debacle, which is going to go probably 4,000% over budget, but I think they're going to pull the plug. But amazingly, 65% of Californians still believe it is important to pump trillions of dollars into that. Had they done it right, they haven't laid a single meter of track yet. But oh my God, are people getting rich off it?
Okay, Stan.
I just wanted to. I'm going to post into the chat. I've got a file on my computer. I've been keeping track of drug names. Okay, so if you want to talk about names, I'm going to post to the chat my list of drug names and how much the company that produced those drugs spend on deciding what these names are going to be, just for some humor. Okay, that's all I'm going to do. Is I'm going to chat this. I'm going to put this list into the chat.
Okay, go.
I have one question. I got the impression from this Palantir video that this AI system would be making decisions.
Yeah.
It's enabling the managers of whatever enterprise has bought it. It's enabling them to make better decisions.
You mean it's supplying them information, or is it actually
showing the screens that they would see of what's going on, and they can pull in all kinds of other screens of related stuff. And also, I maintain that relevant history, citing relevant history, is always on topic, and one of the few things we have of trying to predict the future is seeing analogies to history.
Okay, H. Tom.
All of these things pretty much have to make decisions.
Well, then
What
we're
do
going
I-
outside
what
our
do-
human
what
command
do-
and control.
What do I show you? How do I show it? Which do I show you first? How many things can you handle if I overlay them on the screen? You are different. How do I tell that I'm speaking as the machine, how do I tell I am not being deceived? How do I warn you that I may be being deceived? The return from this radar has changed its update frequency. Does that mean it's been hacked? How do I tell you this?
Well, it's a constant competition there. I don't know.
I agree.
There's one answer. I don't think
It's
there's a simple answer. It's just
it's crazy. The thing about humor in this is that it concentrates your attention for a fraction of a second. This is good and bad. But it lets, when you stop, you get a fresh view of what you have been watching all the time. We got time. War story from Tom. I spent too much time in Marine Corps boot camp. One of the problems we had was that we were growing. There were more and more Marines. We needed more and more bed linens. These were distributed by Marine-drawn carts, big four-wheeled carts, like out of the Old West. There were not enough of them, and they kept being stolen by the different training groups and repainted with their number on them. Ours disappeared, and I was tasked with making our cart unstealable. I was given $50 to do this. I sent somebody to the PX to come back with one can of each color of spray paint. And we had a couple of artistic guys, and I said, paint it paisley. It was unstealable because you couldn't paint over it. People would laugh when they saw it. So what? Next.
Okay, see, back to the topic. This AI system, as I think Tom started out saying, it's making decisions of one kind or another. What to show people or whatever. My concern is once we invite AI into the command and control structure, who knows what could happen. I mean, back when Nixon was president, there were numerous times when he had ordered strikes, and the generals responsible refused to carry out those orders because they would have started another war. So we have to have sane people, I think, somewhere involved. I don't know if that could happen these days, but I don't want to rely too much on AI for those kinds of decisions.
Yeah. There's pressures both ways always, for the reasons you said, and then pressure the other way is you gain definitely a tactical advantage by what's the word? giving the control, tactical decision making over to the AI. You gain a time advantage over the enemy. So it's unclear how much each will prevail. How much will be allocated to AI and. Yeah, let's see, we're done. Okay, yeah, Stan, yeah, I think next I want to play one, probably in most important one to me is the one that about the philosophy of Palantir by its CEO Alex Karp, where the one that says Palantir CEO Alex Karp, everything you learned at school about how the world works is intellectually incorrect. I'm sure it may shock those of you who are kind of what's a euphemism for brainwashed by mainstream media and so on. But I maintain that if his philosophy does not prevail, it's basically all over. Either we are subdued by China or destroyed, or the whole world of civilization is destroyed.
Ed, how much longer videos do you want to show? We have about 20 minutes left.
Well, this one is 8 minutes, 25 seconds. There's however many you want after that. But definitely this is, to me, maybe the most important one, his philosophy of Palantir.
I'm a killer.
Okay, then maybe we can take one quick comment from Dean before.
Yeah. My quick comment is when you're going to AI or anything else, you have to start with the safeguards. So you build the safeguards and then you add the bells and whistles, the way Unix was developed. Unix was developed as secure first, and then we will, where are the safeguards? Where are the seatbelts? Where are the et cetera, et cetera? You got to start there when you're involving human life.
Yeah.
That's the problem of Windows.
Have lost their way. Joining us right now is Alex Karp, Palantir CEO and co-founder. His first book is out this morning, The Technological Republic, Hard Power, Soft Belief.
I'm surprised nobody's offended or had their
Stan has his hand
irritated by that.
I'm going to jump. My concern about his presentation is that he needed to chill. He was way too hysterical in his presentation. Now, maybe he just isn't used to being on the news.
That's how he is all the time.
But
all I've seen of him, all the presentations I've seen of him, but
I'm not sure I understood much of what he was talking about because he was jumping from here to there. He was all scattered. It was like trying to follow Robin Williams, and you're not laughing, but Robin Williams was actually funny. So I don't know. I haven't read his book, and I'll take a look at the summaries of his book. But I think that he might be right about some things. But he was jumping around so quickly and sort of coming up with these contradictions and so forth. In his mind, there were contradictions, but he wasn't making it clear as to why we should be thinking they're contradictions as well.
Yeah, I'm sort of disappointed in his book too, but I know. Well, we can try another one that by Palantir's head of defense makes huge China predictions. It's 9 minutes, 32 seconds.
Okay, Dean has his hand
up.
up.
He's saying that the West is like example of what he said elsewhere. Is like, look at the idiot savants at Google, which were happy to help China develop their face recognition software that could minutely surveil all their own people and eventually everybody in the world if they win. Yet they refuse to work for any American defense program or defense department to try to keep up with China and deter them. That's what we have to, just this leftist brainwashing that's taken over almost all the levers of power, just universities, and it's unbelievable what the crap that's put into them. Anything outside objective sciences.
I'll contradict. I was listening, not watching him, but I did catch some points about where our higher education system has gone and is.
Hey, Carol.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment to Stan on your drug list. Somewhat clever, with the exception of the fact that turmeric is a long-term name for a spice. It was not invented by drug companies.
Well, there's an interesting use of X's and Z's, and they're in V's. They're trying to come up with these strategies, and I'm sure that these are not poor people who are having a hard time making their monthly rent, their mortgages, as far as the people that come up with these names.
This is cute, but not on topic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's part of the semantics discussion.
Yeah,
talking
but
about all this woke
not on topic.
mental disorder, mass psychosis. Anybody who's done investment a long time, there's a famous book, I can't remember, the great classic in 1842, Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds, where he preceded the True Believer, like to talk about the witch manias and so forth, and there's others too, the tulip bulb mania. That was mainly about it. And they just sweep over society for a while, and others have since then. Let's see, the Hitler Youth, the Russia's Red Pioneers, Mao's Cultural Revolution, all with disastrous results for the societies that succumb to them. They're just mass unco memes, I call them, cancer, mass psychoses of the horrendous effects. Hopefully that wokeism is subsiding. I don't know yet. If it isn't, we're screwed. We're done.
Well, I would suggest that the MAGA thing is our current problem.
They tend to keep their superstitions have no basis for them, and if you try to, I don't know how you see that, they tend to keep their superstition, well, maybe I shouldn't say religion stuff, somewhat separate from their worldview, and it just
Really, I thought it was mostly social stuff like abortion and that kind of thing.
That's a factor. Yeah. I'm more for abortion, but there's no way you're going to change people's minds on abortion. You either think women's rights have total priority or unborn children's have rights. When does an unborn fetus, I don't want to start it yet.
Let's get off this. Anyway, we have time for one more video, I think.
Okay, and play that China, let's see, try this one and one more. Palantir, head of defense, makes huge China predictions.
I don't think we have time for a video. 5 minutes is not time for a video.
Well, people can leave if
Is it an 8-minute video, you said?
Yeah, 9:32. Well, you can leave, if you're bored. Anybody can stay over time or leave if they're bored with it.
Why don't you pass the host, Dan, and those of us?
We don't have time for a video.
Well, you don't have time for a video. Why do you pass the host?
Stan wants to leave right at 12.
Yeah, well, that's what
you pass the host.
Oh, do you have to leave then, Stan, or what?
Eric, I would suggest that much of the abortion discussion turns on semantics.
That's not the topic. Let's not get on that.
I was just giving an example of something that we're never gonna.
Okay, what is it that you want to watch?
Well, it was the one of Palantir, head of defense, makes huge China predictions. 9:32.
Okay.
We could start. I don't know if nobody has.
Just starting the next one with that, Eric.
With moderate to severe plaque psoriasis.
Oh. Can you do that, Stan, or I can't hear it. Oh.
I think he's working on it.
Stan is muted. Yeah.
Of undermining the U.S.-China trade agreement. This follows a recent U.S. Commerce Department alert warning against using Chinese chips, specifically Huawei. For the latest, I want to bring in Mike Gallagher. He's Palantir Technologies head of defense. While in Congress, he served as chairman of the Select Committee on this. Strong views on this. What do you